Welcome back to the ETF Inspector. It's Monday, June 9th, around 6:30 at night, so I'm excited to get this out a little earlier than usual. This is the video for our YieldMax weekly paying funds, ULTY, which is the Ultra Option Income Strategy Fund. There it is. And LFGY, the YieldMax Crypto Industry and Tech Portfolio Option Income ETF. We had a big weekend, climbed up to 632 subscribers now, so we're getting closer to that goal of 1,000. Also on X, not necessarily trying to build this for any reason other than I just try to give a heads up when videos are coming out, and I repost YieldMax's stuff when they post the distributions. But this is just trying to point people this way, not necessarily no goal on that one. But if you missed it, the week look ahead for these funds came out yesterday. And if you're into any of the individual funds that I cover 7 of them. That video is out as well. And on the weekend, I post my personal trades if you have any interest in that. But let's get to the purpose of this video and see how things went today. Big picture, as you saw in the thumbnail, mostly green with a little bit of red, so it was an overall good day. ULTY itself closed at 623, up just about 1%, and then continued to go up 2 more cents after the close. Their biggest winner for the day was CoreWeave with a 15.65% increase, and their biggest loser was AppLovin, which is a brand new stock as of the end of last week, down 8.21%. Just in case we forget it later, we'll just hit those highlights for LFGY as well. Nice to see LFGY jump right back up over 40 again, and continued to climb nicely, actually. Another 17 cents after the close. Their biggest winner was Galaxy Digital at 4.75% up, and Robinhood, which it's actually up here because it's in both funds, lost 1.98%. So not a bad day when your biggest loser is less than 2%. Okay, let's get a little more specific now. We'll start with ULTY. I forgot to increase my size, so bear with me for 10 seconds. Okay, we'll start with the trades and then we'll move on to the holdings. So first of all, they added a new stock to the fund, eToro Group Limited. They bought what looks to be 100,000 shares at $74.74. Okay, and then ETOR is the stock ticker. So since they bought 100,000 shares, they were able to do 1,000 contracts. They immediately opened up a collar strategy where they sold calls at 80 and they bought put at 65. For some reason, this still looks small. I don't know why. And now we'll just start at the top. AppLovin. The only thing they did, they were the biggest loser today. So they sold their put at 36 and just moved it a little further down to 34, collecting a little bit extra premium, making a profit of $40,000 on that trade. AST Space Mobile, they closed their 2950s and opened 38s because they also had a big up day as well. So that's a major loss, right? Over $2 million. That's going to hurt and basically affect the whole day's trading. Not a lot of trades today, though. So Hood, right? Robinhood. That was the one of the losers, and they were already started the week pretty far out of the money, so they went ahead and bought to close their 83s and 84s and sold 75s and 76s. So they brought their price down closer to try to collect more premium throughout the week. Everything, with the exception of the new stock, is sold out till the end of this week, being Friday the 13th. Actually, just noticed that. So they collected a profit of $312,000 on those trades. and Upstart. Closed their 54s and opened 60s. Upstart had a big day too, blew through their calls. Obviously that cost them, had to pay $3.69 a share to close them and only got 84 cents a share to open the new one. So they lost nearly $700,000. So not a lot of trades, and it comes out to a loss of $2.3 million on the trading day for ULTY. Now, as we know, usually when it's a big loss on trading day, means big gains in the overall stock prices. So let's go through. I don't know why I feel like this used to fit a little bit better. There we go. All right, Applied Digital had a rough day, lost 6% to $13.02, decrease in value of nearly $590,000. Their calls, they left them alone for now, but they're at 15 and 22, almost 23% out of the money. Wouldn't be surprised if we see them close them out in another day or two. AppLovin, we talked about, they went down 8.21% to $383.60. That's a decrease in value of over $1 million. Their call, they left alone. It's still 17% out of the money. That's a crazy price. It's still $10.55 was what it started. Obviously it went down, but we'll see how much. But they went ahead and rolled the put we talked about to make money on that. So that's no longer their put. AST Space Mobile, another big day, right? We talked about it. They went up 11.6%. $34.82 was the closing price. Blew through their $29.50 calls. That's why there's yellow here. That means we don't need to talk about these. They're no longer the current options. The new ones will come out tomorrow morning. Increase in value of over $1.7 million. I feel like I should stop for just a second, just in case anybody's new. The color coding. Obviously, yellow here is just an indicator for me, so I know that these options are no longer in play. But as far as for the options, I don't color code the puts because they're basically insurance policies. They're not what we're trying to make money off of. We're trying to make money off of what's highlighted. Those are the sold calls. That's the strategy to make money on these funds. Red being in the money. If you sell a call, you do not want it to end up in the money because then you got to pay more to close it out. We want it to close out of the money. So yellow is out of the money in our favor, but within 5%, and green is out of the money in our favor by greater than 5%. Coinbase up over 2% to $256.63. Their calls are still 1.3% out of the money, but that doesn't feel too safe with 4 trading days left to go. Increase in value of nearly $250,000. CoreWeave, the big winner of the day, up 15.65% to $162.10. Luckily, our calls were sold way out of the money because even with a 15% increase day, our call 160s only ended up 1.3% in the money, and our 170s are still nearly 5% out of the money. So they're going to let these ride for now. Obviously, that price went way up today, so we'll see tomorrow morning. But $2.6 million increase in value. First Solar lost 3.72%, went down to $160.16. That's a $278,000 decrease in value. Their calls are now 9.27% out of the money. FTAI Aviation lost 3.44% to $124.73, taking their calls to 5% out of the money and decreasing the value by $399,000. GameStop up over 2.5% to $30.34. Their calls are still 8.77% out of the money even with the increase, and the value went up by $228,000. Hims and Hers up nearly 1% to $56.86. That left their calls 2 and 5.5% out of the money. The majority, though, as you can see, 2,300 contracts compared to 900 contracts, they're at the 2% out of the money, so can't afford much more increase on the week. $172,000 increase in value. Robinhood lost nearly 2%. They were already pretty far out of the money, so they went ahead, closed them out, and sold new ones closer to the money. 73.40 was the closing price, and they lost nearly 400,000 in value, decreased. IonQ up 2.67% to $40.06. They've got calls sold at 41 and 43 that are 2.3 and 7.3% out of the money, and they increased in value by 390,000. Our new triple leveraged fund, LabU, LABU, it's a biotech fund, practically unchanged, 0.02%, $60.41. Those calls are 5.94% out of the money, and it decreased by $1,600. Mara Holdings up 3.11% to $16.27, bringing their calls close to the money, still out by 1.41%, $367,000 increase in value. MicroStrategy had a big day, up 4.71% to $392.12, blew right through the 387.50 calls. So for now, they're going to let them ride. We'll see if they close them out if there's another big day. Increase of $670,000 value. NVIDIA up 0.64% to $142.63. Their 145 calls are still 1.66% out of the money, and they increased by $118,000 in value. Oklo had a big day, up about 7.9%, or nearly $1.2 million in value. $54.26 was the closing price, and that's 2.3% above the $53 strike price that was selected. Oracle up 1.8% to $177.15, still just barely out of the money with 0.2% to go, or 35 cents. They are 35 cents out of the money on a $177 stock. So that increased in value by $156,000. Palantir increased in value by close to $600,000 with a 3.4% increase to $132.06. That took both sets of calls, 128s and 130s, nearly evenly spaced, 720 contracts compared to 600. They are now 3 and 1.5% in the money. So we're going to need some down days to get them back because they did not close them out. Reddit lost 3.1% to $117.53. That was a $600,000 decrease in value. Their calls are now 4.6 and 6.3% out of the money. Luckily, the majority, triple the other, are at the further out one. So we're still looking good for those. Rigetti Computing up 0.35%, or $40,000 to $11.32. Their calls are still 10.4% out of the money. RH up 0.75% to $184.85, a $69,000 value increase, and their calls are still 8.2% out of the money. SMCI had a decent day, 3.78% increase, $423,000 value increase to $43.12. Calls are still 2% out of the money, but they definitely got more expensive today. So going to need some flatness now to have a little time decay on those. Tempest AI, this is a new one added towards the end of last week. Big day, right? We just got into them, sold nearly 8% out of the money, and I think this is the first trading day with them, and now they're practically at the money. They're less than 0.1% away. $66.94 was the closing price, but we made almost $800,000 in value increase. So you'll notice the value increases, they're not profit because you didn't sell the stock, but that's the reason your overall fund price rose so much today. All right, next triple leverage fund is the TNA, up 2% to $32.56, $250,000 increase in value, still 1.3% out of the money. And the last triple leverage fund, TQQQ, up 0.44% to $74.54, still nearly 2% out of the money with an $80,000 increase in value. Tesla had another big day. still bouncing off the bad Thursday last week. 4.5% up, 308.58. Calls are still 2 and 3.7% out of the money, and that was nearly an $850,000 increase in value. UNH, they just can't seem to get this one right. Who am I to judge? But this is the only stock within the fund that they don't own any shares in. They just trade, and it's the only one where they trade a put spread as opposed to selling calls, and it has gone down every day since they added it. So they just keep losing money selling puts with the stock keeping on dropping. But they are 0.6% out of the money with their 305 calls when it closed at 303.19. Upstart up 5.69%. So that took these they were practically at the money, took them deeper in the money. They went ahead and closed out the 54s because it closed at 57.42. They left their 58s alone. They're still 1% out of the money, and that was almost $1 million increase in value. Vertiv Holdings lost 2.9% to 112 even. They're 8% out of the money on those calls, $241,000 decrease in value. And finally, Vistra Corp lost 2.45% to 169.37. Their calls are still 4.8% out of the money, $297,000 decrease in value. So overall, good day. It was more of a win than a loss, with $8.1 million added to the value of the funds, or the fund. Like we said, ULTY closed at 623. There's 66 million, almost 67 million outstanding shares. This 410 is not updated because holdings don't get updated till the next day. But we can expect it to be closer to 415 to 420 because we went up 8 million in value. We lost, 2 million in trading. So, and then there's also whatever if more people bought into the fund. We'll find that out tomorrow as well. Okay, next, going over to LFGY. Okay, their trades. So they sold. So they didn't sell out of any stock. They just sold portions of Robinhood, Mara, MicroStrategy, Riot, Block, CleanSpark, Coinbase, Core Scientific, Galaxy Digital, GameStop. I feel like I already said that. Hut 8 Corp, iBit, Mercado Libre, Nvidia, Opera, PayPal, Tesla, Bitdeer, and NU. That might be all of them. So I kind of found it odd. I wanted to see, they came up with their distribution last week. We said that they didn't actually make enough to pay what they like to pay. So then I said, well, let's see if they were just raising money to pay us. So I totaled up just the stock selling, not the option income thing. Came out to $1.9 million. There's currently, 3.2 million outstanding shares. So if we divided that out, that comes out to 60 cents a share. So I'm wondering if they basically sold that to free up cash to pay us this week. Not to say we're going to get a 60-cent distribution. There's no reason to pay us higher than the IV when they lost money. So let me make sure I'm not confusing things. What is that? There we go. Yeah, so we said based on they lost money last week to the tune of 51 cents a share. So we'll hide that again. Oh boy. Undo. So maybe that's what that was for. That's to pay us. But they probably did a little bit extra in case more people buy into the fund between now and X date, or declaration date. If you bought on X date, you just got to buy it at a cheaper price because you're not getting that distribution. We don't need to go into each. It looks like they're doing something different, though. I did want to just highlight it real quick. The only one that they actually completely rolled the shares is Robinhood. We talked about that, right? They dropped a lot. They were already pretty far out of the money. So they closed their 84s and they opened 78s, making $35,000 profit, bringing it in closer. Still trying to get more premium out of it. The rest, they're not worth talking about, right? They're not the full transactions or anything. Sometimes it's just a couple shares, 7 shares, 6 shares, 5 shares. But what I wanted to point out is it looks like, and I could be completely wrong, but I'm just trying to sit here and look at data and analyze it and figure out what's going on. It looks like they're trying to day trade these things, right? So they bought to close their 1450s for this Friday, and then they sold to open 1450s for this Friday. On this one, it worked out to the tune of 1 cent per share. There's a couple of them where it did not work out, right? Bought them for 17, sold them for 16. Bought them for 284, sold them for 237. But sometimes it worked again, right? Bought them for 19, sold them for 30. Bought them for 20, sold them for 20. So just paying commissions there. Bought for 72, sold for 74. So sometimes they're winning a couple cents a share. There was one fairly decent one. Yeah, they closed for $4.32 and opened for $4.97, so a 65-cent difference. Bought for $2.69, sold for $5.14. So they won a couple of them. Overall, they won for the day. They made $37,000, but they're having to claw now. I mean, they're literally day trading handfuls of contracts at a time, buying and selling the same exact strike price and expiration date. So I don't know. Guess they're trying to earn their fee. But all right, so we'll take a look at how the actual holdings themselves did. We'll start with LFGY. We said $40.08. So ignore that NAV because that won't be able to be updated until all the market values and holdings update. So that ends up being right at the start of the day, but not at the finish. All right, BitDeer went up 0.14% to 1401. Calls are still $3 or 3.5% out of the money. $6,800 increase in value. Before I go further, this fund treats things differently. They do not do the collar strategy, although they do own the shares. They don't do a synthetic combination. They own the shares. Sometimes they'll just sell calls off of them. Other times they'll sell a call spread or a credit spread where they cap the amount they could possibly lose. Other times they just try to make the most they can and hope for the best. But so like Clean Spark, right? They cap it. So they sold at $10.50, but they purchased at $11.50. So the worst they can do is losing $1 per share. But as of right now, they're winning. Right, they're up. Had a big day too, up 3.37% to 10.12. But the calls are still 3.75% out of the money. $186,000 increase in value. Coinbase up 2.1% to 256.63. Their calls are still 3.26% out of the money. Again, they are protected, but they have a $30 spread. $330,000 increase in value. Core Scientific up 4.27% to 12.71. Still 2.28% out of the money. They have a $1.50 spread with their protection. $301,000 increase in value. Galaxy Digital up big, 4.75% to 20.93. Fortunately, these were sold way out of the money, so they are still 19.5% out of the money, and it was nearly a $100,000 increase in value. GameStop up 2.57% to $30.34, increased by $137,000 in value. Calls are still 10.5% out of the money almost, and they have a insurance position as well, but it is $11.50 above their sold price, so they can lose a lot there, but so far they're winning. Robinhood down 1.98%. This is the one where they closed it out because they were 14+% out of the money. $73.40 was the closing price, and it decreased the value of the fund by $151,000. Hut 8 Corp lost 0.11%, or roughly $7,000. Went down to 1855. They're still 7.8% out of the money. iShares Bitcoin Trust ETF, which is IBIT. They don't do any options off of it. They just buy and sell shares of the ETF itself. It went up 4.24% to 6177, over $500,000 increase in value. Mara went up 3.11% to 1627. Their calls are still 4.5% out of the money, and it increased the value of the fund by $315,000. Similar to UNH over in ULTY, they do over here in LFGY, MBTX, they don't own any shares. They just sell a credit call spread. They've got that at 260 on the side where they're making money. They're 1% out of the money at the end of today when it closed at 257.28. We don't show a change in market value because if they don't own any shares, then the market value didn't go up or down based on the price going up and down. Mercado Libre lost 1.36% to 24.48. They've got 2550 calls sold at 4.14% out of the money. That was a $77,000 decrease in value. MicroStrategy up 4.71% to 392.12. Fortunately, whoever was trading MicroStrategy over here in LFGY picked a higher strike than the ones that picked it for ULTY, so they are still out of the money by 0.73 and 1.37%. That was a $644,000 increase in value. NU Holdings lost nearly 1.9% to 1192, bringing their calls to 4.87% out of the money and decreasing the value by $91,000. Nvidia up 0.64% to 142.63. Calls are still 2.36% out of the money and increased the value by $22,000. Opera basically gave back up that $20,000 with a decrease of 0.37% to 18.91. Their calls are 5.76% out of the money. PayPal went up 0.16 to 73.55. Calls are 1.97% out of the money at 75. $6,000 increase in value. Riot Platforms up 2.74% to $10.12. Calls are still 8.7% out of the money. As you can see, they've got a $2 spread on their call spread. $164,000 increase in value. Tesla 4.55% increase to 308.58, or a $239,000 value increase. Calls are still 9.37% out of the money. And finally, Block up 1.31% to 65.84. It's a $41,000 increase. Calls are now 0.24 and 1.76% out of the money. So they're only 16 cents away from their first one, but fortunately that's only 11 contracts, where the 67 is 473 contracts. So overall, it was an increase of $2.6 million. So LFGY had a good day because they made money trading and they increased in value at the same time. So, okay, I think that's everything I've got to talk to you about. So last thing is the dad joke of the day. Before I do, I just want to thank you for watching if you made it this far. If you're not subscribed already, please consider. I make videos practically every day so you can keep track of what your money's doing, or you can decide if this is something you want to invest in the first place. Other than that, that's all I've got until tomorrow. So, dad joke of the day. I searched for a lighter on Amazon, but all I could find were 6,000 matches. Not bad. Okay. I hope you had a good trading day, and good luck tomorrow. I'll catch you in the videos tomorrow afternoon. Good night.